I tried to retrace my steps, to turn back towards Baker. But in the starlight, all I could see were different layers of darkness against the soil, a curve of black that rolled down towards a flat, infinite horizon. I laughed and shouted, "Help!" And the world around me was far too big for the sound to make any difference at all. In the end, I picked a direction and walked as loudly as I could to frighten any animals that might be lurking, thumping against the earth, kicking at scrub and thorny grass, until I came to an outcrop of stone above a thin, sluggish river. Scrambling to the top, I sat down to catch my breath and told myself that it would be all right not to sleep, but simply to watch the stars and think about what had happened to me and how to remedy it, since I was clearly ill. A lunatic asylum wouldn't do, of course. I had seen the chains that held the insane, and had no desire to be dunked in icy baths or beaten with birch to effect my cure. And yet, how sane I felt now that I was away from people. Clearly, my malady was so potent, it had deceived me into believing that I was cured when obviously I was not. How terrible it was to be unable to trust in my own thoughts. Self-pity would wait. My condition needed diagnosis. I had witnessed a trauma, experienced some guilt, and been affected by the sun. Fresh air and hearty walks. If all else failed, that prescription would still be my salvation. Such was my thinking, and a wild loop of conclusion and rejection, inquiry and dismissal it was, so that I could not imagine I would sleep, until of course I did. I woke to the dawn light, and thought for an instant that it was still the sunset glow by which I'd fled, and I had spun, and spun again. A beetle was sitting upon my cheek. My neck, hands, and ankles were flecked with 100 bites from tiny flies, but other than that, I seemed fairly untouched by nature, save that my whole body hurt from my uncomfortable bed. Crawling upright in a creaking of bones and groans, I looked back along the broken path I'd carved across the dusty land, and there he was, no more than 100 yards behind, coming towards me. Long, a bare half-shadow against the cold morning light, a thing that might be illusion, if there was any choice other than to think he was real. He came. I ran. I have witnessed sunrise in the frozen steppes of Asia. Symphonies of azures and silvers, punched through with snowy whiteness as if the sun was sending sharpened heralds to announce its progress. I have watched dawn on the China Sea, the water a mirror of slippery gold that burns the sky to puffy white. I have stood on the shores of Japan and heard the temple bell, watched the shadows chased out of the canyons of North America like dogs before the wolf. But that morning in the grasslands, I ran with the shadow at my back, and the sky was the purple of an emperor's robes, shredded with blood, and the land seemed to swallow the crimson whole and bleed with the day. Sometimes I outran him, and he vanished from my sight. Then I would climb an outcropping of chalky grey rock and look back, and there he was, shimmering in the morning heat, following, and I ran. Sometimes I would stop to catch my breath, or pause by a pool of stagnant blue-green water to gulp and gasp. And when I looked up, it was as if an hour had passed, and maybe it had, and there he was, and I howled like an injured cat and scrambled on. Soon I could only walk, feet swollen in my shoes, jacket discarded, buttons undone to the midday heat. By evening, our pace was more or less the same. He shuffled his burnt-out gait, never lifting his feet, and I limped on, like two ships in the same wind, never closing, never retreating, caught just on the edge of sight. The pain in my feet and legs, the dizzy nausea of too long walking unprotected in the sun, kept me from thinking about hunger. As the sun dipped back towards the horizon, one sensation at a time surfaced and fell within the cauldron of my soul. At this instant, my mouth was leather, and surely I would die. And then at the next, my legs were stone, and surely I would fall. And now my feet were fire, and surely I would never walk again. In this way my maladies almost helped me on, for I had so little time to invest in the extremity of one before the extremity of the next distracted me. And so on we went, as the stars blossomed overhead. We walked together through the desert as the dreamers did in Australia before the fences came. And I thought for a while I knew the names of every star and the secrets of every scuttling living thing that fled before me, and saw behind me the spreading wake of life that I had disturbed, and before me the narrow path I must still walk.